Hello, wonderful algebra students. I am here today to talk to you about key features from a graph. And I love being able to bring this video to you because this is one of the easier concepts that we're going to be talking about during this unit. Okay, so exactly like I said, today we are going to be determining key features from a graph. So when we're determining these key features, you're going to be identifying, and sometimes when you're determining them, most importantly, you're going to be labeling them. You're going to label those key features. So if I give you a picture, can you determine where those key features are and label them? Okay, that's how you're going to show your understanding. And then more specifically, this video is when we are given a graph, right? So you are going to get pictures of a coordinate grid that have lines on them that are already drawn, right? So you might get a picture that looks something like this, and then you'd have to find the key features on that graph. Okay, so we're going to be having a lot of different graphs today and we have 3 examples to do together so we can learn about these key features. There's going to be 3 key features that we're talking about today. The first key feature that we're talking about, and we've talked about it so much during this unit already, is the slope. That's our first key feature, so it's not new, right? The second key feature that we're talking about is the x-intercept. And then the third key feature that we are talking about is the y-intercept. So we got a couple key features there. We're going to be determining those. We're going to be labeling them on graphs. And like I said, we have 3 that we're going to do together just to make sure that you can answer this question with a yes by the end of this video. So I'm going to come back to this question at the end. I'm going to move us on to our first example here. So this is a graph, right? Exactly like I said, you have a coordinate grid here. We have those 3 key features we're going to look at. The first one, I'm going to write it up here at the top. We're going to determine the slope. Okay, we've been talking about slope. There's a couple ways to do that. Some students are still loving the slope formula, and I love it too, right? It works 100% of the time. The slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And they like to fill in those things. Well, here's the thing. It's not just giving me the ordered pairs here, right? It gave me ordered pairs on this graph. I just have to know how to take that point and write the ordered pair. So to find slope, I might say I'm going to use this point right here, and I need to find where that point is at. That point is at -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's at -8, comma, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. -8, -6 is where that point is at. The next point I might use is this one because remember slope, we can use any 2 points. I'm going to use that point, and that point is at -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's at -6, comma, -1, 2, 3. -6, -3. Now that we have those 2 points labeled, then we can go back to our slope formula and fill it in, right? So if this was the x for point 1, the y for point 1, the x for point 2, the y for point 2, I can now substitute those values into this formula, right? So y2 is -3 minus y1 is -6. And again, we're going to change that double negative to a positive. At the bottom, x2 is -6, minus x1 is -8. Again, double negative changes to a positive, and we solve for our slope. -3 plus 6 is +3. -6 plus 8 is +2. There is my slope using the slope formula. Now I do want to change colors just for a second here and make sure I talk to students who aren't picking the slope formula, right? Other students say, hey, I can find slope another way, and absolutely you can. The other way to find slope is by doing rise over run. And I love this way also, especially when we are given a picture, right? We have a graph. We can see rise over run, okay? Rise over run is not that easy with a table or with 2 points, but here with a picture, I can do rise over run so easily. If I use this point and I use this point, and I say from this point, how many do I rise up? I rise 1, 2, 3. And how much do I run? 1, 2. And I ran to the right, so I know it's a positive, so my slope must be 3 over 2. Found slope. right? And just making sure that we know we could have picked any points for slope. If I wanted to do rise over run, but say I didn't pick those 2 points here, what if I picked this point and this point? Let's see how many we rise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I rise 12. And we run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we say, that fraction can be simplified. I can divide both of these by 4. I can divide both of those by 4. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And would you look at that? That simplified is the same slope that we calculated on all of these, right? So there's multiple ways to find slope. That's the first key feature. You don't have to do all the ways. You pick one that you like. That's our first key feature. The second key feature I like is an x-intercept. And this word intercept might be new to you. When I hear the word intercept, I think of either two things. I think of a football being thrown, I think of an interception. Or intercept makes me think of like where two streets cross at an intersection, right? That helps me know an intercept is where it crosses, okay? It's where it crosses. So just like a football interception, it's where they cross, where the players cross, the streets are crossing at an intersection. An x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. So if I go to the x-axis right here, that's where that x-axis is, and I follow it along to right here is where it hits the x-axis. It's where it crosses it. That's the intercept. All you have to do is say, where is that point? Well, that point is at -1, 2, 3, 4. It's at -4, 0. The x-intercept was at -4, 0. A cool thing to note about the x-intercept is that wherever it's at on the x, right here it's at -4, that's in the x part of your ordered pair, okay? If the y is 0, that's the x-intercept. Let's look at the opposite. Let's look at the y-intercept. In a y-intercept, it's the opposite. The x part of the ordered pair must be 0. If it's a y-intercept, the x part must be 0. Okay, so I go to the y-axis and I look for where does it intercept that y? It intercepts it right here. And that point is it's at 0 on the x, right? It's at 0. Then it's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's at 0, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, just checking my math, right? It's at 0, 6. So if we look at those x-intercepts, y-intercepts, that's going to be a key thing to remember, that in the x-intercept, the y is always 0. In the y-intercept, the x is 0, right? It's kind of that backwards. That's going to be something that you want to take on a sticky note and stick it on your brain, right? That's going to be something you want to remember. That's going to help you. In the x-intercept, the y is 0. The y-intercept, the x is at 0, okay? And we can find those by looking at this graph. So I'm going to erase this. You found all those 3 key features. I'm going to move us on to our next one. Okay, we're going to do the same 3 key features on this graph. The first one we're going to do is slope. And as you saw on the first slide, the rise over run method is the easiest one when we have graphs. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one on this graph and model that. Okay, so I'm going to pick this point and I'm going to pick this point way up here, right? You could have picked the middle one. That's okay. I just picked the other 2. It doesn't matter which ones. Rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rise 10, and I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I run 12, and I say, oh man, can that fraction be simplified? That fraction can be simplified. Both of these can be divided by 2. So when I divide 10 divided by 2, that gives me 5. 12 divided by 2 gives me 6. 5 over 6. Now 5 over 6, let's see what happened. If we used 5 over 6 and we started at this bottom point and we rise 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we ran 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it puts us at that point. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It puts us at that point, right? Slope works both ways, no matter which point you pick. Rise over run. Okay, and then our last two key features were the x-intercept. And remember, the x-intercept is where the y part is 0. So let's look. Where does it cross the x-axis? Here's the x. I'm going to go all the way across, all the way. Boom, it crosses it right here, right? It's going through the x-axis right there. But where's that number at? It's right in the middle. What is that number at right there in the middle? It's at 0. So the x-intercept is actually at 0. I don't know what that line was for. Our x-intercept is actually at 0, 0. That is where it's crossing the x-axis. Now let's look for that y-intercept. What do you think about that, looking at this graph? The y-intercept, remember in our ordered pair, if it's a y-intercept, that means the x part is 0. Well, I'm going to go down the y-axis. I'm going to see, where does it cross the y? Crosses right here, right? It's going across that y-axis right there again at 0, 0. So in this case, it only happens here. The x-intercept and the y-intercept are the same because it's going through the origin. It's going through 0, 0 of our graph. Only going to work like that if it's going through 0, 0, okay? We have one more example to do together to find all of these key features. Let's go ahead and move it onto that slide. And then I see something different on this slide. I noticed that the other two slides that we had points already graphed on them. However, this one doesn't. It just gives us a line. It doesn't have any dots or any points marked on it. And this is probably what you're going to see more likely in class and on tests and things like that. We need to be able to put points on this graph. So I'm going to look very carefully. I want you to look carefully with me. Would you choose this point right here to label on that graph? I wouldn't. Right? It's not at an exact crossing. It's not in the exact crossing of a number. I would choose something like this one. It's at an exact crossing. This one's at an exact crossing, right? This one's at an exact crossing. And I could keep going and find more. There's one, right? That first orange dot that we made, we're not going to use. So being able to pull off good points is important. That way you have points to work with on this graph, right? All of these are good points along that line. Now that we have drawn some good points, we can find our key features. We can find our slope, and we find that using rise over run. So let's determine. You can use any points you want. I'm going to use this point and this point, right? Because if the points are right next to each other, then we don't have to simplify our fraction. How many do you rise? 1. I only rise 1. And I run 1, 2. I ran 2, but here's the key, right? Which way did we run? We didn't run to the right this time. We ran to the left. So we need to add that negative out here. It's a negative 1/2. Right? And that is true. If you look at this line, it's going down, it's decreasing, it's a negative slope. Those other two that we had were positive, they were increasing. This one's a negative slope, so you have to include that negative out front. I'm going to look at our x-intercept. And remember our x-intercept in the ordered pair. If it's an x-intercept, that means the y is 0. So let's look across the x-axis. Where is it intersecting it? All the way over here. Let's go ahead and count what number that's at. Here's 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. It's all the way over here at -8. So my x-intercept is at -8, 0. One last key feature, and it is that y-intercept. That's a y-intercept. And in a y-intercept in the ordered pair, The x part is going to be filled with a 0. So let's look. Down the y-axis, where does it intersect? It goes all the way down here. So let's count from 0. Where is that out on the y? -1, -2, -3, -4. It's all the way down here at -4. So my y-intercept must be at 0, -4. That was the 3 key features that we were determining. I labeled them on my graph and I used my graph to determine those key features. So again, I'm bringing us back to this question, can you determine those key features from a graph? So if I pulled up any graph right now, could you tell me what the slope is, the x-intercept, and the y-intercept? If you are a yes to that, then you are good to go and probably ready to move on to your assignment. If not, you might want to rewatch this video and send a message to your teacher and ask some specific questions, okay? Have a great rest of your day, guys, and keep staying safe. Bye.